another chick chat. We're back with another Teen Mom episode. We're just gonna get right into it. So we're gonna start with Bentley and Macy. Bentley's turning 16 and they're about to give him his car.
That is the whole episode. Obviously, we'll get into it a little bit more than that, but that's the focus here. Macy, for some reason, is super preoccupied about this being a surprise. I don't know if Bentley's a little snooper, but it's also a giant blue truck, so you can't really hide it.
No, she's very preoccupied with it being a surprise. He's the guy and he's Ryan's kid, so I don't know how much of a excited response he's going to give. He will be excited, but he'll just be like, oh, wow, I'm excited.
Do I look good? I got a couple pictures.
Do I look good?
That's Ryan's child.
So we see Bentley hanging out with the Edwards, actually, and they were measuring his height, and I died because if you see at the very bottom, we got Mimi Jen. Who's measuring Mimi Jen in 2012?
It must have happened at the same time as this. This looks like the same situation. I wonder who LE is.
I know, I'm like, who are half these people?
Someone Edwards. Larry?
Probably
Larry?
That can't be Larry's height, is it? I mean, Larry is a shorty, though.
Ryan in 08, Ryan in 04.
They were measuring this man his whole life.
Wow, look how tall he grew. This is 04 to 04.
Yeah, he grew a lot from March to November. I don't know who Ty is. They have a lot of random things going on this wall. But apparently Ryan stopped growing in 08. They stopped giving a crap after that. And that's when apparently he was 16. And Bentley is taller than Ryan.
This is the one they just did.
Isn't there one on the top?
Yeah, but I don't know if that could say Bentley. But I guess I'm just wondering about the dates here because this says 10, 18, 24. And that was only 4 months ago.
That would have been around his birthday. Well, does that mean Ryan was 16 in 2003? Because that wouldn't make sense. That means he was a whole old man when he was getting with Macy. They said that Bentley has surpassed Ryan, but according to the evidence, I don't know about that. He looks taller than him, honestly. But yeah, we got all the sweet little flashbacks of Bentley, and that was just...
I almost cried. I feel like a proud aunt when it comes to Bentley for some reason. I think because Macy has always been pretty open and Bentley's gone through so much with Ryan and everything kind of seems to have come full circle. But I kind of almost got emotional watching that little flashback.
This whole birthday scene was really sweet. It was really nice to kind of come full circle. And Macy and Ryan look great. I wouldn't even know they had a 16-year-old.
They're our age. They were young parents.
Yes, but it just hasn't even aged them being parents.
So, no.
I mean, Ryan's gone completely white-haired, but that's his addiction.
That's his own self-stress and his own self.
But he looks great now anyways.
He does, yeah. I think we need to
whole
maybe... How do you feel? I thought earlier maybe we retire Ryan.
Ryan? No.
And use that for when he's being Ryan.
Maybe I don't know.
Also, we're Ryan.
It's hard not to call him Ryan.
I know.
In fact, I saw on Amanda's TikTok. I was looking through her TikTok the other day, and somebody in a comment or whatever, they asked, "How does Ryan feel about this?" And she just shared how Ryan felt about it, but she wasn't
Did
fazed
she
by
call
it at
him
all.
Ryan?
I wonder because she wasn't fazed by anybody calling him Ryan. Speaking of Amanda, she was so fun this episode. I mean, we didn't see that much of her, but when we did see her, she was super excited. She was taking video. She was like, "You guys did that!" Like,
I know. She's so funny. She's like the best cheerleader.
And she's still asking them hard-hitting questions, just like from the first episode of 16 and Pregnant. She's like, "How do you guys feel now?
What's his name gonna be?"
From what's his name gonna be to how do y'all feel now? You guys did that.
She's also come full circle with this family.
She has. It's funny.
Yeah.
They give Bentley his car. They made a whole big little deal about it. And it was cute. You could tell he was surprised. He was talking to his friends at first about how he's going to have to drive his mama's car.
He also said in that conversation that he's the same age that his mom was when she got pregnant. And those kids looked like they could care less.
They don't care. Bentley don't even care. I think the producer just told him to say that really quick.
I know. He's like,
at some point,
go talk to your friends.
I'll give you an extra $50 if at some point in this party you say something about your mom being pregnant.
With your friends.
You ever seen King of the Hill where they're all standing outside just like...
Yeah.
It was pretty much
That's what they were doing. No, you're totally right. That's totally what they were doing.
He was so excited. That's the most excitement I've ever seen from this kid since he was probably a child.
Arms up in the air.
He got to drive it around. Everybody was in the car with him. You could just tell he's a lot happier that everybody is copacetic and getting along. Even when he's around Ryan, you can just see how much more relaxed he is. I remember before, sometimes he didn't even want to go over there. because he felt awkward around his dad. But now they just have such a chill relationship. And I love when Ryan was like, I was late for work for you.
I know.
Yeah.
This is such a Ryan moment too. This, do I look good?
Do I look good?
Yeah.
That's why when he said that, Ryan about lost his mind.
I know. Macy said, you look perfect.
And then we do get Macy talking at the end, which I think was really touching because it really was a full circle moment. She talked about how when she became pregnant, pretty much everything became a challenge, and that she gave up her whole childhood to become a mom, and she had to make challenging decisions all the time. I really think that she did give Bentley the right tools. I don't see Bentley ever becoming a teen parent. I mean, I wouldn't blame a little girl, but at the same time, I think Bentley is so sports focused. I think he's driven in a lot more ways than Ryan ever was, or even Macy at the time. I think that he has other focuses that are precedent. I'm more worried about Gannon than I am about
now at 13 than I am at Bentley at 16. I agree.
Exactly.
And I think Bentley has a lot of the resources to, even if he is doing those things, to make smart decisions about that. And he has people to talk to and all of that.
And his dad, even though his dad had his issues, isn't filling his head with nonsense.
We'll get there.
We'll save that for later. Anyways.
Your time is coming, Josh.
Your time is coming in a few minutes. Give us a little bit of time and we'll get to you, Jersh. So I loved Macy's segment this episode. I don't have a ton to say about it just because really what else is there to say about Bentley turning 16? If anything, for me, it's more like oh my God, I feel so old. Like, because we're the same age as them. So it's just crazy to think right now. If we weren't careful, we could have ended up with 16-year-olds.
And I think that this show, especially for our generation, helped to highlight the challenges at that time. Obviously, now their lives are completely different and they live in big houses and everything has changed. But at that time, they were all struggling for years and years and years. I was watching these girls through college. Kale was trying to go to college and have a baby, and so was Macy, and Bentley up all night and Ryan out all night. It was wild. And so, yeah, I think it is just kind of a celebration to see Benny turn 16, see him get his own truck, see all 5 of them in the truck. Macy's all, we drove 2 hours to get this puppy.
I was late for work.
It's just a good, wholesome moment. So we're proud of all of you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see Ryan sober, and it's great to see Amanda there being supportive. And it just was a really fun looking day. Mimi, Jen, and Larry looked like they were having a great time. Macy's parents were even there. So we rarely see Macy's mom, but that woman hasn't aged a day.
I know. She always looks the same every time we see her.
She looks great. Her mom is beautiful. I don't care. She's a beautiful lady. Yeah. Anyways, moving on to another beautiful lady, Kate and Ty, which they did just launch their podcast, which actually is pretty decent. Yeah. There's no real direction with it, but I love that they're open about it not having a real direction because none of Kale's podcasts have any direction either. But
she likes to pretend.
Yeah, I like that they brought up that there is so many podcasts out there. Like, they were just pretty funny. And I am actually probably going to be listening to their podcast. So if there's anything interesting, maybe we could cover that sometimes.
Definitely. I think especially while we're covering Teen Mom, we could probably fit whatever little kernels we want to discuss maybe into their segment possibly, or if they don't have a segment, make a super video or whichever, or just book it on to the end. So yeah,
Kate's Corner.
Kate's Corner. Let us know if you're interested in Kate and Ty's Corner review.
Yeah.
But so far, I listened to the first episode, and while they didn't cover anything cohesive, they had really good banter. They just had a conversation with each other about kind of the direction they would like to take the podcast and what both of their ideas are and some people that they hope to have on in the future. So I did just enjoy hearing them kind of talk without it being so cut up and have a full comprehensive conversation, even if it was going in a lot of different directions. I could follow the directions at least. I feel like when we're watching Teen Mom, it's just so curated these days because we only get so much.
I know. I hope they find you and then get you on as a guest since you're so close. Because they said regular people that they want on their
podcast.
Regulars.
I would be so nervous. And it's so funny because Kate and Ty, they talk about how it's funny to think of themselves as not necessarily famous, but just like well-known and reality stars or whatever. But I'm telling you, I live definitely within 25 miles of where they live. And every time I am out on the highway, I'm looking for that maroon van with the cheetah print on the side.
One day you're going to see it.
I'm going to be like, Nova's going to be back there and be like,
and then there's going to be a whole segment of an episode where Nova's like, people recognize us.
I know. Yeah. Then they're going to have to explain stranger danger to them again in a different way.
He'd be like, "Don't worry, I'm not dangerous. I just watched you grow up.
Exactly. I just want to talk to you.
Just want to say hello.
Let me take your picture.
Put it on my YouTube channel." Anyway, so their segment is mainly about Butch and Tyler's relationship with Butch, which we have not heard about Butch in a coon's age.
It's been a long time since we've seen this man.
Look at him. Anyways,
they start talking about Raya is going to start, I think, preschool, and it's 2 days a week, but she has the option to go 3 or I don't know, however many. And Kate is propositioning that if she likes it, that she goes 3 days a week. And Ty is already panicking about the idea of 2 days a week. So he didn't love that. And so Kate, I think, was just being funny and bluffing, but she asked, if you want another baby, if I said yes, would you do it? I know he knew she was being funny, but right away he was like,
yes.
Baby right now.
Men always love kids. They always want to have as many as they can, as many as will push out, because they don't have to do that.
Look at that. Just pure joy.
He's like, maybe I'll finally get my boy.
He knew she was bluffing. I don't really think they're going to have more babies, but I am surprised. It does seem like it's possible, which means nobody's done anything to prevent it long-term, like a vasectomy or getting tubes tied or anything like that.
So I thought it was Tyler that was the one that was like, yeah, we're done after this one.
I thought so too, but now his baby is going to school and he can't stand it.
It does make you sentimental, but at some point you can't just keep having babies to keep them out of school. Like,
who are you, Kale?
Yeah, honestly, look at Kale. She's always got an infant in the house. It's crazy.
I know.
But she finally tied her tubes, so let's hope they stay tied.
I was just thinking that, but I wasn't going to say it.
It's a lot of kids.
There's a lot of kids. It's a lot of kids.
There's no way in this economy, like back in the day, my grandparents had 9 kids, but the economy was just, you could raise 9 kids, and they did struggle. They struggled hard. And they actually only had 3 bedrooms. They were in a 3-bedroom house with 9 kids. Yeah. So there was 6 girls in one room, 3 boys in another.
Too many damn kids.
And the house is tiny. My aunt still lives in it. It was a different time back then. That's how people with a lot of kids had to kind of live. And Kale is just so fortunate that she gets to build house after house after house. And she's building again.
Kale is wild to me. I don't know.
Why can't kids share rooms in her house? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I couldn't build house after house after house and be like, this is my forever home. Now this is my forever home. And now this is my forever home. Like, how expensive. I mean, I know she's doing great on her podcast, but who's listening anymore? I can't even listen anymore.
That's why I just keep saying, I don't know, because I just don't know how she is maintaining this lifestyle. I mean, good for her, because she obviously is. So she has secured all of that, and she did that. Yeah. Respect to her. But I just don't know how anyone cares anymore.
Elijah must be helping too. I know he works, and he's got a good job. It's not nearly like Kale money or what she's spending, I think. But I mean, he must have a decent amount of money because he was her neighbor originally. So
he was. I bet you they sold that house too, scooped up the money. They probably got a little something. I'm sure.
He still got it, so this way he can go over to his house and get some peace every now and then and just bring his 3 kids with him.
Honestly, just shuffle. Back to Kate and Ty's.
We get to see Ty's mom, who we also haven't seen in a while. Like, we haven't seen any of Ty's parents in a minute.
I don't know why during the scene they zoomed in on her drinking almost a half of a bottle of water while Ty was talking. Why couldn't we watch Ty talking? Instead, we just watched her glug, glug, glug. Like, why are you doing this?
We hadn't seen her in so long, Brooke. They just want to get every moment.
I suppose, because they really showed her pretty much the whole time. I wonder if they were limited on the camera angles due to the pool.
Yeah, they're like, we only got 1 cameraman out there today. You get what you get. There was a lot of weird.
Michigan, by the way, when Tyler's out there skimming his pool, and the way that he talks to his mom, he's like, I'm just out here skimming the pool. This is such a Michigan way to talk. I mean, you and I talk like that on this podcast.
We do.
Yeah, it's just so familiar.
It's very familiar. Even the skim in the pool, because I used to have to sit there and skim the pool when I had a pool.
The leaves be falling.
They be falling. You get the water bugs. You got to skim the pool constantly when you're in Michigan.
Totally. Yeah. It's a full-time job.
It is. I'm surprised he ain't doing that 24/7.
Looks like he is. Look at that pool back there.
It's crystal clear.
Looks great. Good job, Ty.
Good. His mom and him are talking about his relationship with Butch and his growing up. She said she had 0 help. He wasn't emotionally invested. We pretty much saw a lot of that in the beginning seasons as well, but wasn't really around. And when he was around, he was just yelling and angry and addicted to drugs and going to prison. And when he was angry, trying to take babies. In fact, him and April even tried to go and get custody of Carly after the adoption. They went to court about it, and the judge looked at them and was like, that's crazy.
I think he sent them to rehab that day, too.
Butch has been to jail multiple times, rehab about 9 or 10 times, so he's really gone through it. Look at his Michigan hat.
Represent,
Butch.
Also very Michigan.
Very, very Michigan. A lot of Michiganders wear Michigan hats.
Oh, speaking of
Yeah, there you go.
Michigan State, go green.
Over the years, Tyler has had a lot of contention with his dad. We saw Tyler pretty much parent his dad a lot in the past. So now he's come to this point, I think, after having all these kids and everything, where he just accepts his dad for who he is. He's done a lot of deep therapy and trauma work and all this stuff. He says he has less tools than Tyler ever had. He was younger than Tyler, and so he's just going to give him grace. And it sounds like he wants to reconnect with his dad.
I think he needed a little bit of time to heal. He's told his mom that it had been 5 years since he saw him, so he hasn't even met their youngest daughter, Raya. I can't imagine he's really met Veda more than once either.
And Nova doesn't remember him.
So it's definitely been a really long time. And it seems like his youngest starting school and that transition is getting him thinking more about his parents and the passing of time and things like that and how it happened so quickly. He does end up talking to Kate as well about wanting to invite his dad to come visit. And she agrees. She just is a little bit concerned that he's not going to really stick around, which I think is super valid. It doesn't seem like, unless they provide the space for him to stay, and he's certainly not going to move in, it doesn't seem like he's going to be very accessible as a grandparent. So I get that, but I think I got a picture of it. I think Tyler had a really good response to that. And I think this is super important because I think in this case, it is worth bringing him around as long as he seems to be doing okay at the time, at least so that their kids know who their grandparent is, because time really does pass quickly and you never know what's going to happen. And if he's feeling like he's open to having his kids around, I think it's really important, as long as it's safe, for him to be around for a little bit. And if he disappears for a while, Kate and Ty's kids get all their love and affection from Kate and Ty that they need, and anyone else really is extra. And Tyler knows how to explain, like he said, hard facts of life to his kids. He's not a parent to shy away from that, like Mackenzie.
Yeah. Yes, he's right. He didn't have the guidance that he can give his kids, and he's so present and everything. If Butch does come in and out, he's a grandparent. It's not like it's a parent coming in and out like with Leah and Amber. It's a grandparent. Yeah. And even though you want your grandparents to be stable and be there and everything, you also, like you said, might want to know who they are. And if that's who Butch is, it's who he is. At least it would be an example of what not to be, what not to do. You can love somebody and still want to be around them every now and then, even though they make bad choices and mistakes. Yeah, I think that it's a good idea to have Butch around, as long as he's not using at the moment, as long as he's not on anything when he comes over there or whatever. Kate said, what if he goes and meets up with his friends? And Tyler's like, I'm not his babysitter. He'll have to do that. But obviously I'm going to vet him out before him coming over. He says, I'll know by looking at him. I only need is 3 seconds with that man to know if he's using. Yeah. And I bet he does know. He's dealt with it for so many years.
His whole life. Yeah. Anytime he's been in contact or around his dad's always struggled with addiction. So I'm sure he can tell the difference.
And I'm wondering if that's why the cutoff happened in these 5 years. It was because Butch was probably using and going back and forth. He's been doing that his whole life, it seems like. I hope that he's clean, but you just never know.
Yeah, you never know. And I know Butch used to struggle a lot. Ty has helped him. Kate and Ty have helped him out a lot. I think they've paid for multiple stints in rehab for Butch and helped him out in, I'm sure, a lot of other ways that aren't even filmed on camera. But Butch has always had varying ideas of what sobriety looks like. Whenever he's been on Teen Mom, he's come to some of the reunions sometimes and had talks with Dr. Drew when he's sober. And sometimes he thinks he can use marijuana. Sometimes he thinks he can drink a little bit. Sometimes he thinks he can do all the above. And sometimes he thinks he can't do anything. And I think a lot of that is dependent on what he's doing right now, too. If he's drinking a lot or smoking a lot or something like that, I'm not sure if Ty's going to want to really be around that either.
Side note, do you think April still has the same last name as Butch? Baltera? Could you imagine?
I bet. I feel like she loved that man.
It does cost money to change your name back and things.
April ain't the type.
It took my sister quite a few years to even change her name back.
My mom kept my dad's name until just recently when she got married 3 years ago. And she kept my dad's name because it was the same as my name.
Right. And a lot of moms do that.
But that wouldn't be the case with Kate's mom because it wouldn't. Baltier. They have such a confusing situation. And honestly, I don't even think it's weird. And maybe that's weird of me because I knew they were together before. I just don't think it's strange at all.
I think it's a little bit strange just because they didn't have any kids together. So there's no reason to really keep the last name. And then now your daughter's going to have the last name because she married. So it's a little bit confusing when Nova gets older.
Oh, the last name I think is strange. But I'm just talking about like the fact that Kate and Ty were dating and then Ty's dad and Kate's mom.
No one's related blood So I'm not as weirded about that. I don't see them as step siblings because I knew that marriage was they probably all knew that marriage was going to crash and burn at some point. I mean, they were both addicts. They were both angry all the time. Do you think it was awkward for them to see each other again at that wedding?
Probably.
Didn't April have abuse charges against Butch and all of
that? Yeah, they really crash landed when they broke up. They had all kinds of charges against each other. They were both in jail because of each other and back and forth. And then I think April was going to stay with him because he was in jail to support him or whatever. And Kate was like, Mom, this is dumb. I'm sure Butch was the type to have several different girlfriends and
like Jersh.
A lot going on, a lot like Jersh. But okay, so to wrap everything up, they go to the ice cream store because that's where all wonderful things happen. Ty talks to the kids about Butch possibly coming to visit and shares with Nova, because she doesn't remember him, a little bit about what to expect when she meets her grandpa.
She's so cute. She's such a little Caitlin and Tyler. What's your dad like? And he tells her straight up, he's a good guy, but he's been to prison. Why has he been to prison? Because, you know, he had a disease. He was addicted to drugs and he used to steal to get money for drugs. Well, I just think if he didn't have the disease, he wouldn't have did that. I was like, you're so
beautiful. And true. I mean, so true. And that is why you explain things to your kids in the most plain language possible that they can understand, because it helps them to develop a very innocent perspective of life. It's important to have that because it's important to want to talk to people and want to do life and not be scared of life. Obviously, scary things happen, but not because you're out doing life. That's because life is life.
I just love this kid. I feel like Nova is just here to heal everybody.
She's so cute.
She's a little angel on earth when she asks questions and stuff like that. I just think it's the cutest thing.
Then she also makes a beautiful suggestion that they all take a picture together and maybe send it to Ty's dad and invite him over. She's like, why are we talking about it? Let's be about it.
I can't with that little girl. She's just so smart. That was the best suggestion. Look at her.
Future President Nova.
Little Tyler. Tyler sends Butch the picture, and obviously Butch does not have an iPhone because the text is automatically green.
I did peep that there was a blue message that went through before that. So I
did too, a little bit. Maybe he switched phones. I'm wondering if he either switched phones or maybe his phone wasn't in service, because I highly doubt he's got Tyler blocked. I mean, he ain't Brandon and Teresa.
I doubt,
block him about.
I doubt that too. He could have had his phone off. Maybe that happens a lot. Sometimes your phone is on, sometimes your phone is off. You keep the same number, but the bill fluctuates.
I'd be more surprised to learn that Butch has an iPhone, honestly. I'm surprised he knows how to work it on top of addiction and maybe not being able to afford one and whatnot.
I think they did film him one time coming out of prison, and he was making fun of all the technology updates just on the phones from since he was out. So I agree. I think it's a wonder that that man can pick up a phone. So hopefully he does. I think it'd be nice to see what Butch is up to if they do end up filming it and he comes over. He could meet his little babies.
I think he would absolutely adore Nova.
I know.
She has so many questions for him. Why were you in prison?
I know. What was it like?
What did you do? What did you steal? What did you steal to go to prison?
When you were stealing things for drugs. Were you thinking about me or my dad in the sweetest, most innocent way?
I absolutely can't wait for it. I'm here for it.
Is it because maybe you have a disease? Do you think you wouldn't do that? Can you go to the doctor?
Are you still sick? Is it contagious?
Do you need a tissue?
What did you think about my mom and dad kissing at 14? Why were you kissing my grandma?
Do you think she has any idea about that? I mean, that wouldn't even have been really a part of her life. What reason would she have to know that information?
She doesn't have a reason to know that, and it happened before she was born. I'm sure at some point it'll come up later on, but
it's on television. I mean, it's like popular culture.
One day when she's like 12, she might see April write her name down if it still says Baltera, and she's like, how do you have my last name?
More questions.
But yeah, so that's kind of where they leave off the storyline. Is we're just waiting for Butch to reply. So
yes.
Anyways, moving on, we're actually going to go over to Gary because Amber isn't really a teen mom anymore. So we're gonna go over to teen mom Gary. And he starts this episode off with a FaceTime with Tyler, which was so funny because I was like, was this producer driven? So when Tyler answers one, he's like, what the hell?
All the FaceTimes with the women are producer driven. Sometimes they'll talk to each other. So I think they're just giving Gary his well-deserved dad spotlight. And who is better to call on a dad segment than Ty?
Especially because Tyler also has had a similar history as Leah. His parents struggled with addiction as Amber does. and his dad has been in and out as Amber's has been in and out of Leah's life. So it was kind of cute. They talk about how Leah's driving, and I thought that was funny because I'm like, she's already a better driver than Amber. We haven't seen Amber drive in freaking a decade.
Right.
Tyler suggests therapy in a way. He talks about how when he was younger, therapy is what really got him to where he is today. If it wasn't for therapy, he doesn't think he would be as stable functionally.
Yeah. I think Ty has been suggesting therapy to Gary for Leah for a long time, but I think this is definitely a good time for it because Leah seems really open to the idea. So they actually get to talking about it through some memories that Leah is witnessing. I just had to put this one up because he's doing that thing. Yeah. I thought it was fun. Anyway,
his hoodie and his shorts. He dresses like my aunt. My aunt dresses
funny,
like
a little lightheartedness for the upcoming sadness that Leah's about to bestow upon
outfit. She talks about how her friend messaged her being like, "Are you on TV?" I'm actually surprised it took their friends this long to catch on to them being on TV. But I guess now they all probably have phones and are scrolling on TikTok, maybe seeing the same clips Leah is seeing. So Leah
at some point that algorithm probably got to them. But honestly, to this generation, the show Teen Mom probably isn't honestly super relevant to them.
No, it's not. They probably watch most of their TV on YouTube.
Yeah. So unless it's in a YouTube or a TikTok or something, they're probably not seeing a lot of it. Unless they're really putting two and two together. If they're just seeing the baby, they still don't necessarily know that that's Leah. It could be any baby named Leah until they probably see Gary getting slapped up or something, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of her friends don't know what Amber looks like, but
right. It's like, imagine you and I knowing each other in high school, then all of a sudden you scrolled through Facebook and your parents are slapping each other up. It's just wild.
Yeah, and that's the first clip that they start with. I wonder if those are the exact clips. I know the other clip was the exact clip Leah saw, but if that was the other clip that Leah saw, I feel really bad.
They're out there, and I think they have been circulating more and more. It seems like once the season starts, the algorithms start, right? I think those particular ones have been circulating more and more as people have just had it with Amber.
And Leah's had it with Amber too. She don't even call her mom. She's like, it's just weird seeing Amber yelling at you and then you leaving. And then she describes one of the clips that she saw, which was basically Amber yelling from a different room and then telling Gary to leave and then looking at Leah and being like, look, your dad left. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman was a train wreck. This is when Gary tells her that he wishes he would have just taken her and left because Amber technically didn't have custody or anything. But like we said last episode, she would have found him and she would have beat him down.
Honestly, yeah, he had to be careful, I think, about the way that he left Amber. It was already very violent the way that it was. And that was just when that man was trying to take his TV out of the apartment. So I mean, he had to really slowly take his child out of her life. And honestly, I think it really would have took Amber going to jail or going to prison to have that separation for him to keep her, because I don't think Amber would have stopped fighting. That is one thing that I'll give her. I really think she was telling the truth when she says, I've never been a mom that doesn't care. I'm just a shitty mom. And she's a terrible mom. But I think she would have never stopped.
Oh, yeah. She would have kept taking him to court and all that. And it would have been just a bigger mess. So I think Gary was smart to just let her life play out, because at some point Amber was going to jail the way she was. I mean, she was crazy.
Yeah, and the trash took itself out.
That was a good opportunity for him to step in. It seemed like even right before her addiction got pretty bad is when he had Leah most of the time. He's been pretty careful when it comes to Amber, which is smart because Amber is a ticking time bomb at all times.
This part broke my heart.
Yes.
So I think she was probably just in general too young to remember those things. I don't necessarily know if it's trauma that blocked it out. She was a baby. But just the fact that she was so easy to forgive her dad and just say, it's okay. I don't remember it. It didn't affect me. Don't hold any guilt about that. She was just so quick to forgive him, especially because she's struggling so much with forgiveness when it comes to her mom. And it seems like that's what she wants to go to therapy for, so she can move on from all of that and not carry so much anger, which I think is also beautiful.
I think Gary's the one that blocked it out due to trauma and stuff. I think, like you said, Leah was just too young. But here's the thing with the show now is that now these kids are older and now they're able to watch back what has happened. And even though they don't remember it, it still is a trauma for them when they rewatch it, because they're like, wow, this is how I was treated. This is how my father was treated.
Yeah, it must be such a surreal moment to see yourself as a baby crying and your mom acting like such a fool towards your dad, who is everything to you, right? It must be so wild to see that. And then to know that all her friends can also see it too.
And I don't want to get it twisted. Gary, when he got with Amber, I think that was all really shady. I think Gary was too old for her. Gary was a creep. Amber has come out and said the R word and types of things. I don't know so much about that. I don't want to speak on that. I do think he was creepy. I do think he was sniffing through her underwear drawers. And I do think he was a little bit of a weirdo back then.
And I know there's an age gap and all of that, but at that age, it's not uncommon to have crushes on your siblings, friends, or whatever. I feel like we've all had those moments where like we kiss our siblings, friends, or your oldest siblings have a party and all their friends are like, everyone gets kind of mixed in. And that is how Amber knew Gary was from her older brother. I'm not saying it makes it any better, but I think it at least makes it sense of how they met each other. He wasn't just creeping around a high school trying to find some vulnerable girl.
Don't be blaming Bubby for this.
Oh, Bubby did this. Bubby wouldn't talk to Gary for years because Bubby felt responsible. It's Bubby's fault.
It was partially Bubby's responsibility, but I think Amber would have probably ended up pregnant by somebody at some point. She was all over the place. That's why he went in the military to get away from
My God. So you know how I said I've been watching episodes on Pluto of Old Teen Moms? I just watched the episode where she dressed up like an army hooker for this man.
For her brother. Yeah. That shit lives in my head
Went
forever.
to dinner with Gary and Christina. Dressed, and she's like, sorry, I'm dressed like this. It's Bubby's birthday.
That's your brother. That's her brother, husband, whatever the hell Bubby is.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? Now that you say that, I don't know why this is triggering this for me, but I wonder if the whole fight with Gary and Gary going missing at Bubby's wedding was Amber was just so upset that Bubby. I can't. Just a theory. There's some Bubby and Amber have a strange relationship. I mean, I'm glad that she has somebody that she is close with like that. I'm glad she has a family member like that because Bubby has also told her some harsh truths here and there from what I remember when he has visited her.
Yeah, he's played a fatherly role in some aspects, but they've also had some just strangeties.
Strange interactions.
Yes.
Never seen her dressed like that for Gary or probably the next Gary to come. Future ghost Gary. Anyways. So Leah does agree to go to therapy. She says that her mom has left her with some traumas. In fact, she's scared Christina's going to leave her. And I bet when Christina watched this back, she probably had tears in her eyes because she's been so reassuring to Leah. She always tells Leah that she's here for her whenever, for whatever. And I think that's very important. If Leah is dealing with these abandonment issues, that is constantly being affirmed to her because all she has known is that her mom comes in and out. Her mom is a nut job. Her mom is constantly upset. Or it sounds like when Leah used to go over there, like Amber would just stay in bed all day.
Yeah, it sounds like Leah does have some room for compassion for her mom. She does bring up, I know Amber struggles with these things and it's hard for her sometimes to be involved. So it does seem like there's a space for her to have compassion. But right now, Leah needs support. She needs adults that are dependable and reliable and consistent in her life. And it's really sad that she worries about where Christina's going to go. Like you said, Christina's always providing validation all the time. She's like a validation machine.
I actually have a question for you. Do you think it would be more beneficial? Because obviously these clips are going to keep coming up for Leah at random times, and that might just send her back. Like even if she starts working on forgiveness, she might see something that sends her back. Do you think it would just be beneficial if she just watches the show at just all at once and then just deals with that? And then this way when the clips come up, she's not shocked by them?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a significant undertaking to have to watch all of that. It's just a lot of show. And I mean, she'd have to either fast forward through all the other parts or whatever. So I'm just thinking about the logistics of that. That might be hard to do. But I think that if in a perfect world, that probably would be better because then she can just process all of it and there's not necessarily any surprises or anything that she's going to come across. But I don't know. It's not a common thing that people have these memories or non-memories, I guess, out in the internet that could come back to them at any time. So if you wanted to be real thorough, I guess, it'd probably be important to go through the whole thing. But then at the same time, trauma is one of those things where you shouldn't label someone as traumatized. Two people can go through the same thing and one can be traumatized and one cannot be traumatized. And a therapist should never say, you've gone through this, so therefore you are traumatized. Someone should say, this is how this has affected me, and it's happened in a traumatic way. So I don't know if it makes sense to expose her to all of that unless she's just going to label her entire childhood with Amber as traumatized, which she could. So I don't know. There's never any straight answer when it comes to the brain. All brains are different. We just all have theories and ideas about how it works.
Okay, yeah.
It would probably be best to watch the whole thing, but probably not necessary.
Okay, because I just wonder, because Amber is still pretty active online too, and there's always going to be clips of her popping up. You know, like there's always going to be the past stuff, and then even the most recent stuff. She has been going live, not so recently, but semi-recently, accusing Gary of this and that and that and the other. And I'm sure that can even pop up on her TikTok. So I just hope, I guess I don't hope, but I can hopefully assume that Amber is just ashamed of herself because of just how she's always acted. If you really look at all this stuff back, how can you not be ashamed of yourself and how now your daughter feels? And now she's got to go to therapy just to deal with the trauma of you and everything else and all these clips and everything. You lived your whole life on TV just for it to now come around and bite you in the ass.
Yeah. And the thing is, Amber's not paying the price, right? She's always benefited from her life being on TV. I know obviously she gets a lot of backlash, but financially she benefits. It's really Leah who is now paying the full price of her mom exploiting her and exploiting that whole time in their life. I see it differently when it comes to Macy and stuff, and maybe I'm being biased. They all exploited that time in their life for financial gain, but I feel like they used those resources eventually to improve their children's lives, whereas Amber just did not. And now all of that footage is coming back to smack Leah in the face, and she has to process through hours and hours and hours of footage of her mom being horrid. And that's her mom's fault. And if her mom was healed now, I think that would be different, sort of like with Ryan, where it feels like full circle and healing and everyone feels good, even if it was hard. Whereas Amber has no accountability. She just is never going to be capable, I think. If we're talking about mental health, which I know we are, I just don't think she's ever going to be capable of having functional relationships, especially with her daughter, with maybe any of her kids.
I guess the positive with James is that he never has to really see much of his childhood on TV. That stuff won't come back on him. Just like Leah said in a previous scene, she doesn't even remember when Amber really wasn't there much anymore. She doesn't really remember that time. But now, like you said, all these clips are coming back to haunt her. It sounds like Amber's not going to be going to these therapy sessions or involved or know anything about them. And honestly, what's the point of that anyway? She's just going to probably be like, oh my God, my children trash. Cry about it for 5 years.
She's going to completely take it over and make it about her. If they were to ever go to therapy together, that would be well after Leah is an adult and Leah makes that decision on her own, not anytime right now. Leah has so much to process through and think about and boundaries to set up. And she's already done a good job of setting those up. But I think feeling those out and deepening the reasons for that and stuff like that and what that means when she becomes an adult, which is only in a few short years. She can't hide behind her dad in just a couple of years. She's going to have to really stand on her boundaries herself. And Gary, the second they brought up therapy, he seems to be very happy to take the back seat and let Leah now make the decisions now that she has someone to talk through those decisions with. Because I think Gary has been trying to be so neutral for so long, which is what he's supposed to be doing. And I think he really has been trying his very best. But now that he's not responsible for being neutral and he's going to let Leah make these choices with a professional, I think we're about to really see his opinions come out.
Well, we saw some of them. He said, I love it if Amber tries to take me to court. See how that works out for her.
He was excited about the possibility of that.
Christina's like, well, she said she'd run away. And he's like, she won't run away, but she will be able to make the choice in court. The court will ask her. She's old enough to make her own decision.
I might be just being weird and reading into it, but I think he kind of misunderstood her because I think Christina was saying if Leah was forced to go to Amber's, she would run away from Amber's. And I think Gary was thinking she was saying that she'd just run away if court happened. And he's like, she ain't running away from here. She gonna tell the judge.
She won't tell the judge she wants to be here.
No, but I think Leah would take a page out of Jace's book and run away from Amber's house. No question.
Oh, I think she would if she was
straight back to her dad's house like Jace.
Especially right now. And I think it's really admirable for Leah. I love what she said, that she wants to learn to forgive her mom. And it seems like she's doing that for herself. I don't think she actually has to go up to Amber and be like, I forgive you. But I think she wants to heal on the inside because she has her own issues now. And she thinks that all of her issues are pretty much because of Amber. I got to agree with her that that's probably the majority of her issues is Amber.
Yeah. And I know Amber has done this to Leah in the past where Amber sort of projects her own mental health onto Leah, especially at differing ages. And again, another reason why I just think it'd be an awful, terrible idea for someone as unstable as Amber to go into a therapist's office with her daughter, because she would not take Leah's feelings seriously. She would only project, well, you have this because of me and you need to listen to me because I'm the expert. And I mean, Amber don't know how to function at all, but that's the way that she treats Leah with mental health. It's so bizarre.
She was like that at her birthday. She's like, oh, now that you're this age, I
would need me.
You're going to need me.
Gross. You're going to need to stay away from me is what
she needed you her whole life.
Yeah.
It's like, just stop. Anyways, she don't need you now. She's got Christina, her real mom. But anyway, so moving on to a real mom. Let's go look at Mackenzie. Mackenzie is still dealing with Gannon this episode. It's wild. Did you not think that the scene of her with the phone where they're liking pictures, she wasn't sitting there liking pictures before she called her dad?
She was not. But that was pretty good editing.
It was, but it was stupid.
It was stupid. But that's the transitions they're going for right now, I think, is like the TikTok vibe, and a lot of it having to do with focusing on the teens or preteens, because that's what the videos were. And that's what it was in the first episode. They had Gracie and Leah videos and all that. So I think that's just their transition vibe, but it is dumb. It's always dumb.
Mackenzie's face is the face I made when I saw that scene. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
MTV, like Mackenzie sitting here scrolling through whatever
format has their own app for them to upload.
Say, what is the format of this app or whatever they're on? I've never seen a format like this, so it's not playing with me. MTV, we know we're not stupid. We've been watching the show for 20 years basically. So she calls her dad, asks about his arm. His arm's all bruised up and stuff. But then she starts talking to him about Gannon's phone, which I thought was kind of funny because this is the first time she's ever even talked to her dad about sex at all. I just think that's a weird thing to start talking to him about.
I know. I was shocked to hear that. So she told that to Kaz later on, that this is the first time that she's ever done that. And it's like, lady, you have birthed several children, gone through life, and this is the first time ever. I mean, that is just insanity to me.
Well, and I get maybe not talking to your dad about sex and everything.
Never have the subject be touched is just a little bit.
But then to touch it now for all things.
Well, I think this is a safe way to discuss it, right? It doesn't have to do with her or her body. It has to do with another boy, and he's a granddad. So I think that's a safe way for her to go about it if they're ever in life going to go about it. Obviously, the reason she's never talked to her dad about this is because her dad shares that he doesn't even think it's right for them to talk to their kids about that. And I know I say this a lot. If you watch us, I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but her dad reminds me so much of my dad. Not necessarily that my dad has this opinion, but the way that her and her dad conversed about this difference of opinion. Me and my dad have conversations like that all the time, where he has a little bit more old-fashioned views, and he was still a young parent. But it's just nice to be able to have your parent to talk about things with, even if they don't share the same views, or maybe we're a little more modernized or we look at things differently. Like she said, she's glad her dad is alive so that they can have this guidance, even if her dad is like, never talked about it. I think that's weird.
He says maybe when he hit 16, and she's like, well, 16 was too late for me.
Yeah.
Her parents were religious and conservative. I grew up the same exact way. My parents we've never spoken about it. I actually empathize with her because I don't think I've ever spoken to my parents about that stuff either. And I'm 30.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, I didn't end up 16 and pregnant myself. Yeah. I learned all that stuff from friends, from TV, from movies, from the internet. My parents never sat me down and talked to me about that. Now my mom has talked to me about my period and things like that, but not that stuff. When you come from like a religious background like she did, they more preach abstinence. So if anything, I was afraid to do anything for a while because of that's what was preached to me. If anything, was just abstinence.
But did that work for you?
Yeah, it did for a while, actually. There's some people it works on and some it doesn't. Like, it worked on me until I was about 17-ish, but I wasn't really that responsible when I was doing that at that age. If somebody would have maybe sat me down and talked to me about protection or birth control, I didn't get on birth control until I was an adult. I was 18. I was on my own.
I know it's hard to look back, but do you think if you had that kind of fear, but also you knew if you made that choice about protection and stuff, do you think that would have made you feel more open to doing that at an earlier age, or do you think you still would have waited?
I wonder, because I always thought that the person I lost it to was supposed to be the person I'm supposed to be with the rest of my life. So really what it did was almost made me stay in a relationship too long that I shouldn't have been in for too long. So that's the negative of that. Because when I did finally take that step, I was like, I got to stay with this guy, even though things got really toxic and things were really weird for a while.
Yeah, your first relationship is never your best.
No. So I think maybe if I would have been talked to about it, things could have been a little bit different for me, but at the same time, I was so scared of doing it for a long time that I don't know. I think I just was
even
so scared.
It sounds like even if you knew how to protect yourself, you still probably wouldn't have done it.
I probably wouldn't have. I was trying to wait till I was,
because you weren't protecting yourself from a baby, you were protecting yourself from Jesus and all that. Yeah. Condoms don't protect from Jesus.
Nothing does. He's always there. I don't know. It's like a sticky subject because it's like you don't want your kids doing those adult things before they're actually ready to do them, which is a lot of times what happens. They start doing adult things, making adult decisions, thinking they are adults before they are adults. And I think what my parents wanted to do was just preserve my innocence for as long as possible. They wanted me to just enjoy my childhood. And I think that that's a good idea, but I do think there does come a time where kids hit a certain age where you do have to talk to them, because it's not really them sometimes and what they're being exposed to. It's a lot of the times when they're around their friends and when they're around other people, when they're watching movies or when they're online. You kind of have to get there first and try to at least put in some moral something that they can kind of hold on to, maybe a voice in their head at the bare minimum. So Mackenzie and Cassandra talk about it for a little bit at the goat cart place.
Mackenzie's talking to anyone she can about this except for her damn son.
Yes. I think she needed a lot of preparation because she doesn't really know how to approach it with her son. It sounds like her son already knows the logistics of things, but she just doesn't really know how to discuss to a boy. She's never been a teenage boy, but she knows about teenage boys. And she's just nervous. She's raising a little Jersh and she's realizing it. This is when we learn that Gannon has had a couple girlfriends now, especially girls from her gym. So she feels a little bit responsible because she's bringing these girls in and out of her home and her gym and stuff. Maybe it would be good to separate Gannon from your work in a way. I get that that's hard to do because I'm sure the kids are always in and out.
I think the best thing here is to be a lot more on top of him, be a lot more transparent with him, because I don't know if she's going to be able to separate all of that all the time. And I think at some point Gannon will separate himself. There's no teenage boy that wants to hang out in a gym really that much, even if there's cute girls there. He'll come once in a while, I'm sure, but I'm disappointed in the conversation that she had. I know that we'll get to the conversation, but I think she needs to be a lot more direct with him if he is going to be having so much contact with young girls that she is in a professional role with. That makes things completely different. You're not just some kid's mom from school. You're their coach, and their son is out here making a mockery of these girls. And it seems like right now it's innocent enough, friends getting angry with friends, and that's not even great anyways, but this could maybe cause her some problems. I think she needs to realize how this might affect her as well. Obviously, her son should be her main priority, but if this is happening around her gym with people she's training, then it's not good.
It's not a good look.
Yeah.
Then we learned that Josh had actually been talking to Gannon all this time about his girlfriends and things like that. He had girlfriends while he was married, and he was bringing his kids to meet them. What?
That's me. Yeah. He said he never met any of them, but that he knew about them, and he even knew one of the girls' names.
Yeah, he said Kennedy or something. He said a name. He's like, but I knew about him. Yeah, and she was just shook because it's one thing to cheat on your spouse, but it's a whole other thing to involve your kids, and now your kids know. I don't know, if I was Gannon, I'd almost feel like, do I tell my mom this? Do I not? Right. I mean, obviously he's little mini Josh and didn't really care, but just lets it come out randomly in conversation. But I just think that that's so wild of Josh. I know Josh is a despicable human being in my book, but I think that this is low even for him. There's not many people in this franchise I despise more than Lewis or Amber. But Josh is really just like, he's climbing. He's getting up there.
He is working his way to the middle of the top.
And like you said, he's not even here. I don't even get to see him. And
no, the man's not been on TV in 5 years, but he's still making himself look bad on a daily basis.
Oh,
and it only goes downhill for Josh from here, because she finally worked herself up to have this conversation with her son, which we all know was such a hard thing for her to do. And the second she starts getting down that road, he knows the road that she's getting down because his dad already did the thing, which is fine. Dads should talk to their sons, and if he has access to his dad, I'm glad they're having these conversations. The problem is who he's having this conversation with is Josh. And Josh seems to not only have told him what this is, but seems to have framed it in a way of telling trophy stories and triumph stories, and that's not how it works. I get that Mackenzie felt caught off guard by realizing that this information has already been told to her son, but that does not mean that the things that she wants told to her son has been told to her son. She knows exactly probably what Josh has said, especially when he's referring to he knows how his dad lost his virginity and he's giggling about it. That was probably a boy's story from Disgustingville. She still has work to do. She still has a conversation to have. You need to take a deep breath, not be so panicked, and go beyond. You need to be careful and talk about boundaries and respect more than just saying respect. What does that look like? What does that sound like in a conversation? What are words that might be said that you need to look out for? Those are the things she needs to be talking about, especially when it comes to these girls being involved in her business. I love Mackenzie, and I know that she's did the best she could in this conversation, but I hope and pray that she has several more conversations and builds up some confidence talking about this with him, because if not, this is what's going to keep the franchise going, this problem.
I will give Mackenzie a little bit of credit because Gannon wasn't listening to her. He was laughing her off. He was saying, well, girls don't know nothing. And
that's the thing. That's what his dad has put into his brain, and her just running away because she's frustrated now is not going to change that whatsoever. She needs to say exactly what she does know, whether or not he's listening. I think the thing with teenage boys is their ears are open. Even if they're laughing you off, if they have an attitude, their ears work, their auditory senses are there. So it's more about planting seeds. At some point, they're going to think back and be like, I remember that time my mom said this and that. That's when they'll listen to it. He's not listening right now. But as long as she's saying the words and they're going into his brain, that's better than effing nothing.
Yeah, I feel like she could definitely take another stab at this. And honestly, I would even be letting Cassano handle a few of these conversations, because if he's going to listen to a man over her, maybe Cassano needs to have conversations because we can't just leave this in Josh's hands. We cannot.
No, and I do think Cassandra is having some of these conversations. Last episode, Gannon said Cassandra knows everything or whatever. So it seems like they're having at least some dating conversations. I know Mackenzie wants to be involved in this whole boundaries and respecting women, which I think is very important, but she's fumbling the bag right now. That's what's frustrating me.
You know what? I think maybe she should try again, but have Cassandra with her. So this way they're both talking to him. So then this way if Gannon starts laughing her off, Cassandra can be
like calm down for a minute while Kaz small talks with him. No, I think that's a great idea.
And Gannon, I think, is a little bit not used to these cameras being in on these conversations. So I think that was part of the laughing as well. It was nervous laughing. And yeah, when he said this, her face dropped.
He's so cute right here. He's always like scurrying away from the camera. You never really get a good look at him. And this is where he's giving that kind of trouble look, like he's trying to be funny and whatever. He's so cute right here. You can kind of see some of his personality.
I just love his little pillow too. Do you notice his grandma on the pillow?
Angie was just there watching over them have this terrible conversation.
Shaking her head like, oh my gosh.
Praying for Jesus.
If Josh wasn't such a crappy person, I would probably have called him and been like, what did you say to this kid?
Instead, she has to pry it out of him, which is like, ugh. What a
Josh
horrible position to be in, to have to ask your kids, what did your dad say? How has he brainwashed you?
How horrible. If he was a decent person, after he had his conversation, he should have at least let Mackenzie know that Gannon knows these things. But no, of course he didn't. He's barely a functional human as he is.
So true.
Oh, I can't stand that man. And I just think he set his son up to be a teen dad. Gannon's not listening to Mackenzie, and Mackenzie's now in this tough spot. She's going to have to address this again.
This should be an ongoing conversation starting at this age. This is a conversation, if you're really being open with your kids, that you should be having often, because there's more information that has to get introduced as they get older and develop and their lives change and their decisions change. That's the thing that she needs to just get more comfortable with, is starting and initiating these conversations and having a goal in mind and executing that goal. Because you never know what a teenage boy is going to give you when you talk to them, but you need to be focused. I hope she has more of these conversations. She's obviously going to have to. This can't be it, right? And it shouldn't be it, I think, for any child. It shouldn't just be the birds and the bees and then you never talk about it again until you get pregnant.
I assume Mackenzie walked in there feeling a lot worse than when she walked in. And that wasn't the goal. The goal was to at least educate him. I think she could have did better, but I think she was probably shocked. She wishes she just would have beat Josh to the punch. And that kind of hurt my heart a little bit, because how shitty of a person can you be to have that kind of crappy conversation with your son and then not even let the mother know that he knows that, at least?
Well, that's why I think it was crappy. I don't think it's a bad thing that he talked with his son about that or that he beat her to the punch, but I think it's bad that he didn't tell Mackenzie that this is what he's now aware of. And I think the reason he didn't do that is because he probably filled this kid's head with horrible things that are not respectful or good or even accurate about the ways relationships work with girls or anybody. I think that's why he didn't tell Mackenzie about it, because he probably talks to him about cheating and being a player and hooking up. He probably uses really vulgar language that's not necessary at that age.
That's why Gannon's been running around at her gym acting a fool, because his dad's only given him the worst example. Even if you look at Bentley and stuff, if you got to compare, you don't see him acting this way when it comes to relationships. And Ryan's not the best role model, but I'm sure Macy was able to beat him to the punch and have real conversations with him, along with Taylor. Yes. It just sucks that Gannon now has a preconceived notion of what all this stuff is like. And that's what we were saying about corn and everything, how that can give you an unrealistic view. I think Josh is doing the same thing. Let's not forget, who wants Josh like that? Josh is probably talking himself up a big game with his kid.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's probably teaching him all kinds of things that Josh wasn't even near capable of, because it's Josh.
Wasn't Josh screwing Mackenzie's cousin? Are we really going to let this man be the dictator of what's acceptable for actual conversations?
She supposedly took that one back, but he was screwing everyone else. So
I still think he was screwing her cousin. So
something was going on. I mean, she didn't just come out of thin air. Maybe it didn't actually happen, but they probably were flirting or something, I'm sure.
I don't put it past him. I don't put anything past that man. You would think he would draw the line at his own kid. It's one thing to be a crappy husband, a cheater, horrible partner, and not even that great of a dad, but it's a whole other thing to be bad dad and then putting your own bad dad views on your child.
That's so true. It's so true.
At least let Mackenzie raise the kids the way that they should be raised. They see you once in a blue moon, and then the one time they see you, you're gonna.
True. Gannon said it best, though, I guess. What do you expect from Josh? What'd you expect?
That was true. I kind of chuckled when he said that. I do think the conversation was split up a little bit weird.
Yeah, it definitely was chopped up a little, but I think probably also for privacy too. I hope if they had more of a detailed conversation.
I worry for Mackenzie. Imagine trying to get pregnant right now while you're dealing with this. Like, it almost turned me off from another kid.
So funny too that she's trying to have the talk with him and prevent him from making a baby. And she walks in and she's like, the second I mention the word segs, you look at me like I don't know what I'm talking about. Like this woman is trying to make a whole baby right now. She knows what she's talking about.
Part of that conversation I thought was interesting is when she was talking to Cassandra, she was like, I just don't know how to look at the kid I got pregnant with at 16 and say, don't do these things because I don't want him to feel like he was a mistake or whatever. And I think there is a way to talk about it where it doesn't frame it in that light, where it's just like, this was hard for me.
Yeah, I think Macy actually had a really good verbiage to talk about that. Once you're pregnant at that age or you have a child at that age, then you have to just constantly make hard decisions for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean your life is hard or difficult or any worse, but I think any teenager who gets pregnant thinks at that moment in their life that they've ruined something in their life. That doesn't mean their life is ruined forever. But that is your perspective when you're a teenager, and you do have to make hard decisions after that. That doesn't mean you're not at the same time happy and grateful. And I think the fact that Mackenzie loves her son and her son feels that love, he's not going to walk away with that idea.
Gannon thinks just because he's got a couple of chickens, he's a dad and he knows everything about sex. I need Josh to go to jail. I'm done with him. I put him in jail for
Give him the Amber treatment.
Oh my gosh. I almost think it's worse to be a crappy present father, filling your kid with all this crap than just not be there. Let Cassandra take this over at this point. I'm done with Josh. I haven't even heard his stupid mumbling voice in years, but I can't.
Yeah, well, he's obviously around, which is worse because nobody can hold him accountable. We know Mackenzie ain't gonna do that.
Well, there's no point in talking to that man. Seen her try to talk to that man until she's blue in the face and he doesn't even flinch.
I hate that man. All right. Well,
so what's for next time?
I'm actually very excited for the next episode because we are going to finally see Jade coming back. We have the girls' homecoming is happening, and Gracie's boyfriend is going to come pick her up for
her little boyfriend.
Her little boyfriend. He looks very tall to me. Gracie's tall though too, so we'll see how tall he actually is. And then they just kind of tease Jade the rest of the teaser. It's going to be Chloe's birthday. I think she's turning 5. I can't remember.
5 or 6 or something like that.
Yeah, it's Chloe's birthday, and she wanted to invite Ryder. So, of course, Cheyenne's going to come along, and we're going to get a little bit of a crossover with the teen moms. And then we get a good old-fashioned Big Gulp Christy meltdown. At least the beginnings of one. It seems like they're going to spread that out over an episode or two, but she's going to start crying. At least
Cheyenne goes to hug her, and she's like, well, you're the only one.
Nobody loves me. I have a feeling they're going to spread Big Gulp Christy as long as they can.
Yeah, it's Jade's main conflict. Her life's going so good that we don't even see her anymore. We just see her when Big Gulp Christy comes around. They show a scene of Cheyenne talking with Leah, and I'm like, Leah, why is Leah there? This is a 6-year-old's birthday party.
I know.
And
I know. I wonder if they just made it an all-cast event because they were already paying for Cheyenne to go.
Yeah, and I get that Leah is in Indiana, but who she got to talk to other than the adults? I just thought that was funny. It's like, okay, what are you doing here, Leah? Talking to Cheyenne of all people about this. This is interesting.
It is really weird, yeah. But we'll see. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what Cheyenne has to say to little Leah.
Well, we're going to have to wait another week for that. So we will see you guys next week. And remember to like, subscribe, share.
Click the share button. Click the copy link button. Click it again and again and again.
We are getting close to 800 subscribers. So if you guys are feeling froggy, definitely help us reach that 800 subscriber goal. And reduce, reuse, recycle. Rihanna. Goodbye.
Goodbye.